And when we talk about persuasive efforts, right, there are different tricks and routes that are going to play in. But as I mentioned, we are also going to have to look at who is trying to persuade us, right? And there's this idea of trustworthiness that fundamentally underlies if we're going to listen to someone or not. And that triad of trustworthiness is going to be based on perceived authority, likability, and honesty. Now, these different features are what we've talked about in the last unit with Milgram in obedience and conformity, right? Because all these factors are going to affect how we perceive the deliverer of the persuasive message and if we're going to oblige or not. For example, if you read online on a restaurant's website, we have the best curry in town. You may be like, okay, I'm sure you do. Everyone does. But then your best friend says, hey, have you been to this restaurant? They have the best curry in town. You will be more inclined to believe your best friend as opposed to the random website. And that's because your best friend has different features that you're looking for that in that persuasive message, like honesty. Hopefully your best friend's honest. That likability. Maybe they do a food blog, so they have some kind of perceived authority in that domain. These are all going to vary how we trust the source of the persuasive message. So for example, with perceived authority, the President of the United States has status, power, and significance as the leader of our country. With our socialization as individuals within a society, we grow up with this respect for authority. It's part of our moral virtue. We listen to the authorities above us, our parents, police officers, grandparents, things of that nature, teachers. It's ingrained into our moral virtue. And so that's why sometimes we encounter these issues with succumbing to authority too readily. There's a point where it can be beneficial for us, but also detrimental, especially if it's mindless, right? Because sometimes we think that people in positions of authority have access to special information, or we tend to generalize their skills. We think, well, they're a professional in one domain, like the President of the United States, President Trump, is a professional in the business domain. However, some people thought that this professionalism and authority in the business world would transverse over to an authority in the rule of law and delegation among different countries. There's a perceived authority there. And also just note that sometimes that perceived authority may not always be legitimate. Sometimes, like a psychology teacher talking about politics, or a religious leader talking about science education. Now, unless they are a, religious leader with a degree in science education or something of the like, then they may have an authority in there. But just be careful to make sure that you don't think because someone has an authority in one domain, that automatically means it's going to traverse multiple domains. It may, but it's not a safe assumption. Tangents. Honesty is also going to be how trustworthiness is manipulated, right? If someone's perceived as being honest, that is going to be the moral dimension of trustworthiness. We want to believe that people have our best intentions at heart. And this is going to be critical to persuasive efforts. We are going to believe things that we deem honest, right? And then there's also a likability factor. Like Kylie Jenner, people like her because she is beautiful. She broadcasts her life for people to see. She seems very accessible as a celebrity in some ways, I guess. But that's why celebrities are so interesting to study in regarding ads, because even though we know they're probably not using these products, we still trust them and buy them because we like them. We feel this kind of connection to them even though we don't know them personally. And so these likability qualities are going to be very complex and very different based on, what factors people value in likability. Maybe you like Kylie Jenner because she's beautiful and she's business savvy with her makeup line. Maybe you like Idris Elba because you find him attractive. I don't know. There's going to be different reasons why we like people, particularly with attractive people. Actually, attractive people are an interesting kind of subgroup, because attractive people, we're more likely to think that they are all these wonderful things based just on their looks. We're more likely to think that they are kinder, smarter, stronger, more successful, more socially skilled, better adjusted, exciting, and of higher moral character. We infer all these things based on just how people look. So it's really interesting to see how we consider authority, honesty, and likability as this kind of mixture to determine the trustworthiness we put into a source. Another way to manipulate trustworthiness, besides the traits of the actual people, are different methods, so to speak. So testimonials and endorsements. These are the things when you're reading reviews on Amazon. Sure, the company could tell us how great their product is, but we may not believe them. Sometimes if you're a single mom looking for an application that'll help you organize your stuff, I don't know, you want to hear from other single moms. You want to hear from people who are similar to you. You want to hear those testimonials and endorsements that people that can relate to you. You're more likely to be persuaded by methods of those nature. Word of mouth, that's the example with the friend in choosing a restaurant. You're more likely to listen to your friend recommend a certain restaurant as opposed to an acquaintance or a random online source. Also, sometimes when we present the message as education, we can manipulate trustworthiness. This is just kind of when someone takes a persuasive message and reframes the conversation as, I'm trying to help you learn. Once you have all the information, you'll make the logical choice. It's really sneaky. And I'm trying to find a good example of how to play this. But this would be like if someone was trying to sell you like a product. Instead of focusing on selling the actual product, they may say something like, I'm just here to help you make the best decision for your life and the ease of cleaning your home with such a busy schedule, right? They're not framing it as selling the product anymore, but as someone who is going to help you in this way. That would be the best example of presenting the message as education for our time purposes. And then we also have the maven. This is just the idea you kind of find people who do stuff. It's kind of a mix of word of mouth and testimonials, but you also rely on free things. So think of like influencers on Instagram, right? So different people will give them free things to promote their products. Like, oh, we'll let you stay in this hotel free for a week as long as you promote it on your page. That's the idea of the maven. They're using their power, their clout to manipulate people's trustworthiness so that those resources can be used, if that makes sense. So the hope in that case, in offering that influencer a free week stay at a certain hotel, the hotel is hoping to get that that cheaper publicity from someone who has serious clout and maybe has traveled the world, right? They're using their perceived authority, that influencer's perceived authority, to the organization's advantage. That's the idea of the maven. And I lied. This lecture is going to probably be 3 parts, so I'm really sorry. Anyway, what we're going to talk about with other tricks of persuasion, I'm going to try to keep this down to the basics. And I will pause this video here and do a part 3.